Alrighty, I'm super pumped to have Michael Wagner, the CEO and co-founder of Star Atlas. Star Atlas should need no introduction, but I will briefly say it is in my opinion, most promising, big budget, exciting Web3 game for real true gamers and not in like that play to earn direction. Really for true gamers who love gaming. It's a super exciting title. I'm pumped to chat all about building in the Web3 space, Web3 gaming space with Michael today. Welcome, Michael.
Louis, great to be here. There's a lot to unpack under the hood. Definitely going after the mainstream gamer, but we put a lot of weight into this philosophy of true on-chain game logic and composability and the things we can do in the space as a result of that development methodology. But happy to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
And what a perfect platform to use with Solana. So before we dive into like what Star Atlas is and how you came to have the idea, could you just share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of people probably know the full background, but I've been in the crypto space about 10 years, come from traditional finance in the investment management space. And it was largely the result of not being able to get any traction with the registered investment advisors that I was working with in getting Bitcoin in client portfolios that I made the decision in 2015 just to go full-time crypto after doing some cloud mining and GPU mining of different cryptocurrencies, and launched my first company in 2016. That was called Tokes. It was a company that operated at the intersection of crypto and legal cannabis, trying to provide financial services to that industry. Through that, recruited what would ultimately go on to be two of the other co-founders at Star Atlas. That's Danny Floyd and Jacob Floyd, Chief Product Officer, Chief Technology Officer, respectively. And fast forward to 2020, a few doors had closed on us with respect to some opportunities we had with Tokes, and we went back to the drawing board, sat down with the guys, and we all could see what was coming with NFTs and PFPs and DeFi and a very nascent stage of crypto gaming. A lot of turn-based games or card-style games, and Jacob and Danny both have deep experience in the game development space, and we decided we wanted to bring something that was completely immersive, that was AAA, that would ultimately cater to the mainstream and build it on chain. And we selected Solana pretty early in that analysis process, and the rest is kind of history.
Nice. Okay, so you've teased the lead there. Can you share to the listeners who are somehow not aware what Star Atlas is? What Star Atlas is?
Yeah. I honestly always have a difficult time kind of fully explaining it because the breadth and the scope of what we're building is incredibly ambitious and tackles a lot of different areas. The easiest starting point is on the flagship product that we're building, which is Star Atlas in Unreal Engine 5. And so this is the open world space exploration MMO centered around territory control, combat, data running. You can be a CEO, you can be a politician, you can be a bounty hunter, but it's that full immersion that includes things like extraction and crafting and supply chain management, logistics, and then just open world combat and battle. We've actually been doing some experimentation with first person / third person shooting right now, so kind of taking you all the way down to the character level and then all the way out into deep space where you can inhabit your ship and explore the interior, and you see all of these beautiful materials. So that's the AAA gaming side. But beyond all of that, we're really what I would describe as more of a development platform or ecosystem. And this is because of our philosophy, again, because of this idea of on-chain logic. So we have two other environments that are in development. One of those is in browser. We just rolled out a product launch. It's called Sage Labs, and Sage is Star Atlas Golden Era. And Labs was this experimental dev environment that we were working in to test the on-chain mechanics, and ultimately gave it a facelift, cleaned up the UI UX, and just released that out to the world last week. And that is it's all centered on resource extraction and crafting, navigating this 2D map and identifying opportunities to collect resources and then putting those into crafting tables and collecting loot or trading those on the open market. There is a 3D implementation of that. It's being built in Play Canvas, so you'll have full WebGL 3D assets in browser. And again, the browser application is really more of a real-time strategy implementation of the game. And then finally, we have a mobile app. that's also in development. And this is a mobile fitness app. It's called Crew. And the idea is similar to Move to Earn. So similar to what Steppen is doing, for example, with the exception of your physical activity, your walking, running, or cycling doesn't earn you currency, it levels up your character. So you're actually progressing your character. And then where all of this coalesces is, again, that back end blockchain infrastructure where all of the gameplay mechanics can actually tie in and reference the same on-chain program or smart contract. And so movement that's taking place in, say, the browser application can be replicated into the Unreal Engine application and vice versa. And all of the assets that you're using all point to the same asset itself on-chain, and are interchangeable. So you level up a crew member in the mobile fitness app, you can slot that into your ship through ship configuration and loadout. And obviously, the higher your crew member or all of your crew members, the more performant, the better ship attributes you'll have in your in the game.
Got you. So the idea is that the gamer who is playing, for example, Star Atlas, like the main experience or the primary experience, they can be leveling up and playing the other two games sort of in tangent or alongside the main game, and it all feeds in together.
That's the idea, and some of this is still theoretical. We haven't fully implemented all of this, but I can give you one example of how this will integrate within the next couple of months. So within the Unreal Engine product, this is massive scope. It's going to take many years for us to get to a complete V1 of the game, but we do release modules or iterations of the game periodically with updates to gameplay loops and mechanics. We're now on release 2.1 of that. 2.2 is coming out towards the end of the year, most likely. And that gameplay loop centers on competitive combat racing. So you can kind of think Mario Kart or pod racing, where you're picking up boosts and you're picking up ammo and you're attacking other ships. And through this racing gameplay loop, those players are going to be burning some of the core resources that are in the economy. Food, ammunition, toolkits, things like this. Now, those same resources are all extracted from Sage Labs. That's the default arena for you to collect those and craft those items. And so what you could see is players that are engaged in the RTS browser game, extracting resources, crafting these consumable inputs, and then selling those to players who just care about racing. So let's assume you're the mainstream gamer and you're really most interested in content, in the entertainment aspect of the game. But there's also a chance for earning there because your races, you're competing in tournaments, and maybe there's a little prize pool in Atlas that can be paid out. So these players are earning Atlas through competitive racing. They're using that Atlas to buy resources from people who are playing the browser-based game. And all of these, again, are just simply operating on Solana. And so both environments, whether it's in Unreal or it's in browser, reference the same assets, and they're easily transferable across accounts. And in fact, in mid-2022, we rolled out a software development kit that we call the F-Kit, and this is a Web3 JS library that integrates Solana natively into Unreal Engine. So when you load up our game client, you're actually connecting a wallet there, just like you would do if you were connecting a wallet to, say, any DeFi application out there. And through that wallet application, you can reference and see all of the assets that are in your possession. And based on that, those are the assets that you can load into the game. We've also taken it a step further and built out the marketplace integration into Unreal Engine as well. So you're able to trade peer-to-peer as well as purchase from, say, us on the primary markets directly in the game engine. But we think this is really cool, and it's the activation of a real world economy as the foundation for all of the gaming products that are coming out. And I would just make one final point about this. Why I say it's a development platform is because, again, this on-chain logic concept leads to composability, extensibility. So other developers out there can build their own applications, whether it's DeFi or GameFi or game services, and they can seamlessly and permissionlessly integrate into our game logic because we have the IDLs out. They can point directly to one of the gameplay mechanics and build something around that. And this extends to a very, very wide opportunity of game content creation in the future as well. But the idea is we can inspire a global population of developers to build their own products around Star Atlas and leverage the existing user base wherein everybody wins. The users get access to new features, the developers find some way to monetize the service that they're providing. We get new services and a happier audience because we don't have to allocate the resources to build it ourselves.
Yeah, completely. I mean, this has always been a very attractive part of the concept of Web3 gaming or GameFi or whatever you want to call it. And I used to think about, imagine you're playing Star Atlas, you have some really sought after coveted item, and then an indie dev releases a small game and they give you bonuses based on if you own that item, and it's a win-win for both sides because the indie gamer is able to leverage, a new player base. And Star Atlas is able to say, like, hey, look how valuable it is to be playing Star Atlas. Like, other teams will even be launching stuff, just for you, which is really cool. I'm curious to get your take as a builder on the other side. Like, you're building what we would consider like a AAA game, and these typically in the regular gaming sphere, they're very expensive. They take a very long time, and it's kind of like a front-loaded cost, right? Like they spend a lot of money for 5 years, and then they release the game, and they hope it sells well. But I'm guessing, and I'd love to get your thoughts here and how you guys are approaching it. I'm guessing that the way that you're building it, because you have this in-game economy, it has a different model. So could you maybe speak a bit about that?
Yeah, of course. And in fact, we were just discussing this internally yesterday, the idea of the mainstream AAA titles that do take 8 years or 10 years. Starfield, great example.
Yeah.
It was 10 years in development, but I think their marketing said it was 25 years in the making for it to be conceptualized, and then the tech to evolve to a sufficient state, and then for them to actually break ground and start building. And there's all this buildup and anticipation, and then a month after the release or 2 months after the release, it's essentially nobody talks about it anymore because there's something else. So our approach to finances was really bootstrapping. So it was presenting the idea, creating some assets, selling those assets, and getting people involved in the development process early. So we have a great community, a very active community. We listen to them extensively and communicate with them extensively as well about what's taking place, what's being developed, and providing content to them as we go. And in doing so, you can really think about being involved in Star Atlas is not just about waiting for the game. Part of the experience is actually being behind the scenes and seeing a game develop and seeing the evolution of that product. And people are really captivated by this. So it's I don't want to overemphasize that point because at the end of the day, everybody does want the game. They do want to play. Like that's really what it's all about. But there's just something special about being able to be a part of it and say, I was there on day one when there was nothing. It was a white paper and a dream that these guys put out there on the internet, And so again, we've cultivated this fantastic community, and they're willing to effectively crowdfund the development through the purchase of assets which have some function in the game. And so that has always been our plan, because building out AAA, to your point, is a big budget. It takes a long time. You're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars in development costs, and that's if everything goes right. And that doesn't even factor for working on the bleeding edge of innovative technology like Web3 integration into the game. So we know it's going to be expensive. We were fortunate in that we had a very successful first year, extraordinarily successful first year. Having done some $200 million in revenue. Now there's caveats to that and some ups and downs, and we can get into that if you'd like, but it's our approach to funding development has never changed in spite of the success or in spite of roadblocks that we've hit along the way. We have to continue to produce good content. We have to produce something that people want to engage in, and the result of that is both user acquisition and revenue generation for us. Now, where I would say more distinct is that my strategy is not necessarily to continue to bootstrap through new asset sales. At some point, there will be a finite supply that we produce. Our strategy is to produce a functional economy that has a high transaction volume. So it has a large GDP, a lot of players exchanging assets with one another, and we effectively just capture a small tax on all of those transactions. And that tax is a bad word. Nobody really likes taxes, and nobody likes the idea of taxation. But what that provides as a benefit to the player is that we don't need to be the sole distributor or seller of every asset. When I think of play to earn, and the criticisms of play to earn and how it's they've all failed and it's not sustainable, it can't work. It's because people are using an emission curve of tokens to supplement or exclusively reward the players. But if we're able to create an environment where there's layers of complexity and specialization across the game, then one person might be exclusively mining carbon and crafting that into something, and another person is exclusively mining hydrogen, for example. But they both need hydrogen and carbon. So you have one player who will sell hydrogen to the other player and one player who will sell carbon to the other player. Very basic example, but the general principle is players are able to create income for themselves based off of other players' interest in the things that they produce. And that could also come down to purchasing convenience. If you don't want to go through this whole extraction and crafting process, you just want to race, you're happy to buy these resources from other people who do want to spend the time on that gameplay loop. And so again, it's being able to match producers with consumers, where we take a small portion from the middle, but otherwise the majority of that value exchanges between those two people. And that can lead to a sustainable real economy in the long term.
Got you. That makes complete sense. Like, where do you see... I mean, my perception is that building a successful economy, it must be challenging, right? Because you have to get the incentives really like dialed in, that everyone they're incentivized to actually perform their action, everything runs smoothly. I mean, where do you see like the biggest challenges so far in terms of building the in-game economy?
Well, to be frank, the biggest challenge is just not having sufficient gameplay out across the board, across all of these different initiatives that we're working on. The biggest incentive in gaming, bottom line, is it fun? Is it entertaining? And if you're not doing that, then people won't want to play regardless. I mean, if all you're focused on are the economics or the finances, then you're just building DeFi. Right. And so in many ways, I think of DeFi as actually the first gamification of finance, because the idea that you could borrow from one liquidity pool and get a higher yield in another liquidity pool, there is some strategy there that's kind of fun if you're able to exploit it. But ultimately, the biggest incentive is the game. If we have fun gaming products, people will come in and want to play that, and that elevates all of the activity across the economy.
So, that makes complete sense. Yeah. And because a lot of real gamers seem to criticize Web3 games, and I think it is because they have misplaced they have misplaced goals of, they consider the economy before they consider the game. So it's good to hear that you guys are sort of taking like the game first approach there. And the next question is around like crypto. I mean, it moves so quickly. As you said, DeFi initially was like a game. I remember Sushi Swap, with all the different menus and stuff. It was very gamified. Yeah. And that feels like it was yesterday, but it was already 3 years ago. So, crypto moves very quickly. How do you guys kind of remain relevant as you're building out the game?
I think the vision and the scope is what keeps us relevant, and being able to execute at the bleeding edge. And this is true not only for the blockchain integration, but for the development that we're doing in Unreal Engine and the sheer quality and fidelity of the assets that we're bringing to market. I mean, we are competing with the best in AAA game development at the same time as, operating and integrating blockchain into everything that we do. So, that is going to be paramount for our future success, is that we can continue to bring best in class to market, and something that keeps people really captivated and interested in the long term.
Got you. A quick one before we move on to Sage Labs. For all the gamers out there, like, what platform will Star Atlas release on? Is it PC, console, etc.?
Yeah, we're already available on PC, so we're listed in the Epic Game Store. It is early access pre-alpha, and it's closed access. If you join our Discord right now, we can get you an access key. Just given its early stage, we wanted to make sure we didn't open the floodgates too soon. So, what it is could be misinterpreted. We're looking at open access by the end of this year or maybe early next year, but nevertheless, it's on Epic Game Store. We're happy to distribute out a game access key if you want to test it out in this early alpha state. We have ambitions to go to console as well, and then we've also done a little bit of work in VR to date. Not a lot, just very experimental work, but it's looking really cool. But yeah, PC and console, hopefully in the future.
I can imagine the VR experience really working nicely, even if it was just like a garage with your spaceships and you can go around them. That could already be really nice. Okay, let's move on to Sage Labs. So you already kind of talked a bit about it before, but this is the most recent release. I believe it came out like a week ago or something around that.
Yep.
Can we dive a bit deeper into what Sage Labs is? You mentioned it's like a strategy game with a lot of sort of inventory management and resources. Maybe you can explain it in a bit more detail.
Yeah, it's very much a logistics and supply chain game loop. It is a heavy focus on the economy right now. Labs itself started really in the, I don't know, call it the skunk works or the basement of Star Atlas Engineering, where we were testing out a lot of these on-chain systems and how they would be orchestrated together. And so the guys had thrown together just a really rough rudimentary UI. They kind of had understanding and context of the programs. And a few months ago, after seeing where the progress was with the programs themselves, we made the determination that we could, as I said, give it a facelift, put a clean UI on it, and get that out to people so they could start participating in this new economy. It is a 2D, more text-based and menu-based gameplay. There are some visual elements that represent where you are on the map and where you have assets across the map, but otherwise it includes all three factions with a set of different star bases, and each star base has a unique set of resources. There's 9 base resources in the game, but there's some probably 28 or 29 different craftable resources, and this could be compounded out into 2 or 3 crafting processes that combine different items. And so what you're doing is you're loading your ships into the game, and you're determining what asset you want to craft, or where you think a market opportunity lies. You're going out and extracting that, and then again bringing it all back to your central space station. That's where you can extract it out of the game and trade it on the marketplace if you want to. Longer term, Sage Labs is the basis for Sage, which is just the browser game Star Atlas Golden Era. And that's when we would enhance it with the WebGL 3D assets, and it'd feel a lot more like, say, a Stellaris than an O game, which is what it's similar to now. And in the future, the players are actually going to need to construct their own star bases, and this is how they'll capture territory and expand the borders of their factions. And I guess I should outline, there's 3 core factions in the game: the Mud, the Ooster, and the Oni, and this is like the future humans, sentient android beings, and then this consortium of alien races. And they're currently operating under a treaty of peace, but there's some rumblings going on, and out in the medium risk zone and out in the high risk zone, some piracy and other activity taking place, nefarious activity taking place. So that's kind of that's the real basis for Sage. And I would just outline too that this is 100% on chain. So your character creation, your profile, your character progression, movement and coordinate systems, inventory management systems, the extraction, crafting processes, in the future, the combat systems, all executed as transactions. This includes localized inventory as well throughout the map. So if you're at one star base and you have resources there, you can't just extract that out of the game, and you can't just instantly teleport that to another starbase. You actually need to bring ships in that all have, all of our ships have extensive attributes associated with them. So depending on how you construct a fleet of ships determines how capable it is at combat, how capable it is at freighting, how much inventory space it has, things like this. But you have to actually set up supply chain for yourself to be able to restock your resources like fuel along the way and ultimately get everything back to that central space station.
And the crypto person in me wants to know, are the resources, say I have 10 copper or whichever kind of resource, are they tokens themselves or
They are.
NFTs? They are. Okay.
Yeah. They're all SFTs. Yep.
So in SFTs,
which is effectively just really a fungible token. You can
okay.
just call them fungible tokens. They're all on Solana. These are all SPL tokens.
Oh, got you.
Yeah.
Okay, got you. Okay, so in theory, could I like make a pool, with say 2 Star Atlas resources, on Orca or somewhere, and people could trade that resource?
You 100% could.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's the
Very
power
cool.
of Web3. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like liberty, freedom for you to go out and use the assets that are in your wallet in any way that you want to. In fact,
super cool.
we have seen someone set up an R4 pool. So the R4, this was originally conceptualized with Faction Fleet, which was something that came out in December of 2021. But that was the food, fuel, ammunition, and toolkits. Those are the 4 base resources, consumable resources that you needed to maintain a fleet that as long as you had a non-zero balance of those, your fleet was earning Atlas. So that was kind of the early activation of the emission curve of Star Atlas. But somebody set up a pool, just like you're suggesting, with those 4 resources, and people can trade in and out of that LP.
Very cool. Really neat.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, are you a fan of the Expanse? Because some of the lore that you were mentioning totally took me to the Expanse almost immediately.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Probably not my favorite in terms of sci-fi, but it's a cool show. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, let's move on a bit more to like looking forward. You guys have an incredible amount of load on your shoulders here with the 3 different projects. I'm curious, like, what does the next, say, year or a couple of years look like in terms of the pipeline?
I mean, it is packed. This was another conversation I was just having this morning, and we'll actually be we've taken the approach recently to be a little bit more proactive with the prioritization and really trying to compartmentalize to a minimum MVP. In software development, MVP, the minimum viable product that you can get out. And I think what we've fallen victim to through the early phases of this company is thinking we have an MVP, but it turns out it's actually way bigger scope than what we originally thought. And so something that we think we can get out in 3 months takes a year to get out, or something along those lines, right? So really trying to consider what is the minimum feature enhancement that we can release that adds value and utility to all of the players, something that still provides entertainment for them. But if I were to go maybe just from top down, Unreal Engine product again, 2.2 release, we're targeting end of year or early next year. And this is the competitive combat racing loop. It's also ship mastery, so your ship can level up. It's the ship configuration, so you can customize components throughout the ship. You can customize your crew. You can specialize in various attributes. But one of the big innovations that is coming out along with the public release is this integration and partnership that we have with a company called Metagravity. So Metagravity is similar to, say, a Hadean or Improbable. This is all about backend server architecture, dedicated servers, but also user concurrency scaling. And the big goal for us is to create one giant open world that is completely seamless in and out of Atmosphere, and also, no fragmentation, no sharding, no separate instances, no separate servers for the players at all. Whatever happens on a central space station is replicated across the galaxy or across the universe for every single player that's effectively in the game. And so we've been successful at testing 5,000 concurrent users, single instance so far. Our goal is 30,000 by the end of the year. We're tracking on that. It's looking promising. That in and of itself would be record breaking in the industry. Nobody's delivered, like Improbable with with the other side meta. I think they've done 14,000 or 15,000. They do use spatial partitioning, so it's kind of a different tech than what Metagravity uses. But nevertheless, for us, that would be a huge, huge accomplishment, and it really just scales from there is the idea. So those are kind of the big up and coming for Unreal Engine product for now. We also have a handful of experimental modes. I mentioned the first-person shooter, third-person shooter concept. We have a couple of, I might be oversharing here, but we have a couple of game modes that we've been experimenting with, like Capture the Flag, King of the Hill, Team Deathmatch, stuff like this. So we're just going to play around with a few of those different modes, and then don't know if we'll go this direction next year or not, but there is I think a great opportunity in creating a combat arena, so PvP combat arena with your ships, and you have to do matchmaking and all of that. But I'm a big fan of PvP in every MMO that I play, and in terms of something that's repeatable, just being able to get in a match and constantly compete against other players, we do think there's a big opportunity there. So that might be coming for Unreal product as well. The mobile fitness app, this one's kind of taken the back burner for now, but I think sometime early next year we'll try to release the mobile fitness app. And then Labs is again, really the big innovation with all of the on-chain logic for now. And then we will be figuring out how do we integrate that logic with Unreal Engine. But in the meantime, it's bringing forward the 3D UI, and then expanding out into things like star-based crafting, adding in the combat systems, adding in loyalty point systems, and then transitioning the economic model to reintroduce Atlas emissions as a part of that gameplay loop.
I love how this question to a standard like NFT project or game project, it would probably be a very rudimentary answer, like, oh, we're gonna add multiplayer in 6 months. But it just goes to show, like, a testament to you guys' ambition, that how much how much you guys want to work on, and how much you guys are already looking to ship and deliver. It sounds really, really exciting. I can completely understand why people enjoy to be in the community and along for the ride. We're hitting 30 minutes here, Michael. It's been a real pleasure to have you. I'm pumped to see what you guys are releasing next. I already had a play with Sage Labs. So yeah, again, thanks so much for coming on. And if folks want to learn a bit more about Star Atlas, where should they head?
Louis, I was just going to say I had about 20 other things that we're working on I was going to tell you about, but if we're at time, we're at time. But honestly, our DAC platform, this is a guild management system that's also fully on chain. A lot of the people in our community that are members of big guilds are really looking forward to this. And then we have a really cool profile system that allows for account management. I just wanted to tease those two things out there because those are coming sooner than later as well. But yeah, I mean, in terms of getting news, to me, the best place is just to join our Discord, because it's always vibrant, it's always active, and people are willing to share and exchange information back and forth. But otherwise, following us on YouTube and following us on Twitter, we're active posters there as well. And in fact, for the people that are economic minded, we produce a quarterly State of the Economy report, and that's coming out on the 29th of this month. So in a couple of days, the econ report will be out. And we actually have some early data that we're sharing about the traction and success of Sage Labs.
This is a topic for another day, maybe next time you come on, but it makes me think, I don't know if you're familiar with the network state concept, but a lot of what you describe, it really connects closely to me with the idea of creating this kind of incipient network state. You have this economy, you have regular reports, you have a kind of government, I guess, who collects a small fee. It's a fascinating experiment that you guys are on. I do encourage everyone to take a look. And again, thanks so much, Michael, for coming on.
Thanks, Louis.